Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The night Genoa City would no way forget began still, the kind of deceptive calm that had wisecracked its most important families far too numerous times ahead. Rain barred down the altitudinous glass windows of Jabot's superintendent palace, blurring the megacity lights into distorted reflections of ambition, remorse, and secrets long buried. Outside, the structure was nearly empty, save for the low hum of security systems and one man who shouldn't have been there alone so late. Jack Abbott stood in his office, jacket off, tie loosened, gaping at the darkened megacity as if it might offer him answers it no way had ahead. His reflection in the glass looked aged than he flashed back, heavier with choices that couldn't be undone. Jack told himself he was only there to recoup documents. That was the taradiddle he repeated in his head. Indeed, as his hands quivered slightly, the verity was far more dangerous. He was there because guilt had come louder than reason, because a mistake made weeks agone had started to claw its way back into the light. And tonight, for the first time, Jack felt commodity he hadn't felt in times: fear. Downward, unseen by Jack, a red light blinked quietly on a recently installed security camera. Jabot's board had claimed on upgrades after recent commercial sabotage pitfalls. Jack had inked off on the expenditure without an alternate study, no way imagining that the same system designed to cover his conglomerate would come the instrument of his death. Before that evening, Jack had entered a communication from an unknown number. "You should have finished it when you had the chance." No hand, no explanation, just those nipping words. Jack deleted the communication, but he couldn't cancel the memory it stirred: the argument, the struggle, the split alternate decision that changed everything. He'd induced himself no bone. He'd induced himself the history was buried. He was wrong. Jack moved to the office, opening a retired hole only he knew about. Inside was a small flash drive, unmarked, its weight heavier than it had any right to be. His jaw tensed as he picked it up. This was supposed to be insurance. Rather, it had come a liability. He didn't hear the faint click of the office door behind him until it was too late. "Looking for commodity?" came a familiar ice-cold voice. Jack spun around, heart slamming into his caricatures. Standing in the doorway, club in hand, eyes sharp and merciless, was Victor Newman. "Victor," Jack said, forcing calm into his voice. "It's late. What are you doing then?" Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I could ask you the same question, Jack. Jabot business hours ended long agone." His aspect darted to the flash drive in Jack's hand. "Care to tell me what that is?" Jack closed his fist around it. "That's none of your concern." Victor took a slow step into the office, the sound of his club echoing like a preamble. "Everything you do is my concern when it threatens the balance of this megacity." He signaled subtly toward the ceiling. "You might want to be careful. Those new cameras of yours, they're veritably thorough." Jack's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" Victor didn't answer right down. Rather, he walked to Jack's office and pressed a button on his phone. A videotape began to play, its gleam reflecting off Victor's spectacles. Jack honored the angle incontinently. The corner of his office, the veritably camera he'd no way bothered to detect. The footage showed Jack weeks before, visibly angry, defying a shadowed figure whose face was incompletely obscured. The audio was muffled, but the pressure was unmistakable. Voices were raised. Also came the push, the fall, the sickening silence that followed. Jack staggered back as if struck. "That's not Victor, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand impeccably," Victor said still. "I understand that you made a mistake. A deadly bone." Jack's voice cracked. "It was an accident." Victor's eyes hardened. "Accidents don't get covered up. Accidents don't involve flash drives hidden in divisions." For a long moment neither man spoke. The storm outside boosted, thunder rolling like judgment from the sky. Jack felt the walls closing in. Times of contest climaxing in this one unrecoverable moment. Victor had him. And Victor knew it. "You could destroy me," Jack said eventually, his pride stripped bare. "Is that what you want?" Victor studied him, seeing not just his adversary, but a man possessed by his own choices. "Destruction is too easy," Victor replied. Control, that's far more useful. Jack swallowed hard. What do you want? Victor leaned in, his voice dropping to a dangerous tale. I want your silence. Your cooperation. And when the time comes, I want you to flash back that your freedom exists only because I allow it. Jack gripped his jaw, rage and emotion warring inside him. You'll no way enjoy me. Victor smiled thinly. I formerly do. Unknown to both men, the camera continued to record, landing every word, every trouble, every concession. Nearly differently in Genoa City, another brace of eyes was watching the same footage, eyes filled not with power but with shock. The verity was spreading, and Victor Newman wasn't the only bone, who would soon know what Jack Abbott had done. As the night wore on, alliances would shift, commitment would fracture, and a single listed moment would hang to bring down two of Genoa City's most important elephants. Because in this city, secrets no way stay buried ever, and the camera no way lies. The storm didn't break when Victor Newman left Jabot that night. However, it strengthened, settling over Genoa City like a living thing, if anything. Jack Abbott remained frozen in his office long after the door closed behind Victor, the echo of that final trouble still ringing in his cognizance. The flash drive lay on the office now, exposed, useless. For times, Jack had believed that knowledge was power. Tonight, knowledge had come a mesh. Jack poured himself a drink he didn't want and couldn't taste. The videotape replayed in his mind in grim detail. He told himself the camera angle wouldn't count. He'd induced himself the audio was too malformed. But Victor had understood enough. Worse, Victor had everything he demanded to control the narrative. Jack wasn't just hysterical of captivity. He was hysterical of getting an armament in Victor Newman's hands. Across city, the Newman ranch was alive with quiet pressure. Nikki Newman sat in the living room, clinging a glass of wine she hadn't touched. She had known Victor long enough to fate the signs: the late return, the narrowed aspect, the silence that followed him like a shadow. Commodity had shifted. Commodity dangerous. You're awfully quiet, Nikki said precisely as Victor entered the room. Victor loosened his fleece but didn't sit. Jack Abbott made a mistake. Nikki's breath caught. What kind of mistake? The kind that ends lives, Victor replied, his voice indeed. Too indeed. Nikki stood sluggishly. Victor, what have you done? He eventually looked at her also, and for a split second, commodity-like mistrustfulness flitted across his face. I've done what I always do. I made sure Genoa City doesn't fall into chaos. He broke. At least not without my authorization. Meanwhile, at a town bar that flattered itself on obscurity, Phyllis Summers sat hunkered over her phone, replaying a coarse clip transferred from an anonymous source. It wasn't the full videotape, just seconds of footage. Jack's voice raised, his hand pushing someone back, the unmistakable sound of a body hitting the bottom. Phyllis's eyes widened, her mind contending faster than her twinkle. Oh, Jack, she rumored. What did you do? Phyllis knew better than anyone that secrets in Genoa City were currency. And this bone, could ruin conglomerates. Her phone buzzed again. A communication followed the clip. Victor knows. Decide who you want to survive. Back at Jabot, Jack's phone chimed. The frequenter ID made his stomach drop. Kyle, Jack answered. Kyle Abbott's voice was tense. Dad, security flagged unusual access logs. Someone pulled footage from the superintendent cameras. Was that you? Jack closed his eyes. Lying to his son felt worse than lying to himself. No, he said still. It wasn't. Kyle dithered. Also, who was it? Jack swallowed. Victor Newman. There was a long silence on the line. Dad, what's going on? Jack looked out at the rain-soaked megacity. Everything I tried to cover you from is coming back. The coming morning, Genoa City woke up to whispers. Not captions, yet but murmurs in boardrooms, half-transferred textbooks, exchanges that stopped when someone new entered the room. Victor moved through it all like a general surveying a battleground. At Newman Enterprises, he summoned his inner circle, his tone measured, his demands precise. Control, he reminded them, wasn't about force. It was about timing. At Jabot, Kyle brazened Jack face to face. Someone is suing that you were involved in an altercation that ended poorly, Kyle said. If this gets out. It will, Jack intruded. Victor will make sure of it. Kyle slammed his hand on the office. Also fight him. Jack met his son's eyes, the weight of generations heavy between them. You can't fight a man who owns your secrets. Across city, Phyllis made a decision. She encouraged the clip, not to the press, not yet, but to Nikki Newman. The communication was simple: you earn to know who you're wedded to. Nikki watched the videotape alone, gashes streaming quietly down her face. She didn't see a monster. She saw two men playing God with mortal lives. When Victor returned home that night, Nikki was staying. You knew this would destroy people, she said, holding up her phone. You still used it. Victor's jaw tensed. Jack destroyed himself. And you're finishing the job, Nikki replied. Is this who you want to be flashed back as? For the first time in a long while, Victor had no answer. As days passed, the net tensed. A body, long assumed missing, was officially declared dead. Examinations restarted. Processes impended. Victor pushed Jack harder, demanding concessions that would strike Jabot piece by piece. Jack complied intimately. Indeed, as intimately he unraveled. In a final twist of fate, the same camera system that recorded Jack's mistake captured commodity additional entirely, Victor hanging a substantiation, obliging a tech to alter timestamps. The footage surfaced anonymously, landing contemporaneously in the hands of Phyllis, Nikki, and the authorities. Genoa City stood on the point. Jack and Victor faced each other one last time. Not as rivals, but as men exposed by their own choices. The camera blinked above, silent and unprejudiced. This ends now, Jack said. Victor looked up at the lens, also back at Jack. No, he replied vocally. This is what it's always been about. Truth eventually catching up. And as the screen faded to black, one thing was certain in Genoa City. Power could buy silence, but the camera always had the final word. The fallout didn't explode all at formerly. In Genoa City, destruction no way arrived with a single blow. It strained in, quiet and sharp, turning abettors suspicious, suckers distant, families divided long before the first temptress ever sounded. By the time dawn broke over the megacity, the damage was formerly done. At the Abbott manse, Jack Abbott sat alone at the dining table, untouched coffee growing cold wave in front of him. The house was too quiet. No arguments, no horse laugh, no distractions. Just the ticking of the timepiece on the wall, each alternate echoing like a preamble. Jack had spent his life fighting to keep the Abbott heritage complete. Now, because of one moment of rage and fear, everything he loved was balanced on the edge of collapse. The knock at the door came precisely at 8:02 a.m. Jack didn't jump. He'd been awaiting it. Two uniformed officers stood outdoors, professional, undecipherable. Mr. Abbott, one of them said, we need you to come with us for questioning. Jack jounced, formerly reaching for his fleece. I understand. From the staircase over, Kyle Abbott watched, helpless fury burning in his eyes. Dad, don't say anything, Kyle called out. You hear me? Don't say a word. Jack broke, meeting his son's aspect. I love you, he said still. No matter what happens coming. Across city, the same morning unfolded veritably else at the Newman Ranch. Victor Newman stood in his study, phone pressed to his observance, issuing calm, murderous instructions. Attorneys, fixers, directors. Everyone had a part to play. Victor had survived too numerous wars to fear now. However, he was incorrect if Jack Abbott allowed. He was going down alone. You control the narrative, Victor said coldly. You don't let it control you. Behind him, unseen but hearkening, Nikki Newman stood firm in the doorway. The man she loved sounded less like a hubby and more like a king preparing for siege. And for the first time, Nikki wondered if the conglomerate Victor had erected was worth the bodies buried beneath it. At the Genoa City Police Department, Jack sat in a sterile interrogation room, hands folded, jaw gripped. Across from him, a operative slid a tablet onto the table. The screen lit up and there it was again. The push. The fall. The moment that could no way be undone. Do you fate this footage? The operative asked. Jack closed his eyes. Yes. Is that you in the videotape? Yes. Did your conduct directly lead to the death of the existent in question? Jack's voice slightly held steady. It was no way my intention. The operative leaned back. Intent doesn't abolish consequence, Mr. Abbott. News of Jack's questioning spread through Genoa City like campfire. At Crimson Lights, exchanges dropped to whispers. At Newman Enterprises, stock prices wavered. At Jabot, directors batted contingency plans behind unrestricted doors. Everyone felt it. The shift. The sense that commodity foundational was cracking. In the midst of it all, Phyllis Summers watched from the sidelines, equal corridor affrighted and vindicated. She had loved Jack formerly. Perhaps part of her always would. But love didn't eyeless her to Verity. And the Verity was bigger than Jack now. Bigger than Victor. Phyllis entered another anonymous communication that autumn. This time it wasn't videotape. It was metadata. Timestamps. Logs. Evidence that the security footage had been penetrated, duplicated, and manipulated. Victor Newman wasn't just holding substantiation. He tampered with it. Phyllis didn't vacillate. She encouraged everything to the quarter attorney. By the time Victor realized the ground was shifting beneath him, it was formerly too late. A leave arrived at Newman Enterprises just as Victor was leaving a board meeting. Cameras flashed. Journalists cried questions. Victor said nothing. His expression sculpted from gravestone. At the estate that night, Nikki brazened him. "You altered substantiation," she said, her voice shaking. "You crossed a line indeed you swore you no way would." Victor met her aspect. "I defended my family." "No," Nikki replied vocally. "You defended your power." Silence stretched between them, thick with times of love, treason, and compromise. However, Nikki continued, "You will lose everything, if you keep going. Including me." For the first time, Victor looked uncertain. The courtroom proceedings that followed consumed Genoa City. Jack was charged. Victor was delved. Testaments disaccorded. Substantiation piled up. The same camera that had started it all now served as both judge and cutthroat, replaying Verity frame by frame, indifferent to heritage or character. Jack took the stage and told the Verity. All of it. The argument. The fear. The moment he chose to push rather of walk down. His voice broke as he spoke, not for himself, but for the man who failed and the family left before. Victor no way witnessed. His attorneys advised against it. But when new footage surfaced, Victor hanging a substantiation, promising protection in exchange for silence, the vision of control shattered. In the final moments of the trial, the judge looked down at both men. "Power doesn't place you above consequence," she said. "And secretiveness doesn't abolish guilt." The verdicts gurgled outward, reshaping Genoa City ever. Jack faced sentencing. Victor faced complaints. Conglomerates quivered. And yet, in true Genoa City fashion, the story didn't end with a gavel strike. As Jack was led down, Kyle watched with gashes in his eyes but also pride. His father had eventually told the Verity. As Victor left the courthouse girdled by attorneys, Nikki stayed before, standing alone in the hallway where their life together still fractured. High above the megacity, the red light of a security camera blinked on, recording it all. Not choosing sides. Not minding who fell. Because in Genoa City, power may silence people, but the camera always remembers. In a narrow fluorescent-lit holding cell, Jack Abbott sat on the edge of a sword bench, hands clasped, gaping at the bottom as if it might open and swallow him whole. The noise of the installation faded into the background, replaced by recollections he couldn't overrun. Kyle's voice cracking in the courtroom, Nikki's haunted expression, Victor's undecipherable regard. For the first time in his life, Jack couldn't buy his way out, talk his way out, or charm his way out. This was the consequence he'd laid over for far too long. Across city, the Newman ranch felt cavernous. Nikki Newman wandered from room to room, touching familiar shells as if to assure herself they were still real. Victor hadn't come home. Not after the complaints. Not after the cameras. Nikki poured herself a drink, also pushed it down untouched. Love had carried her through decades of concession, but tonight love felt like rendition, and she was done surrendering. At Jabot, Kyle Abbott sat alone in the CEO-president, a position he no way wanted under these circumstances. The board had suggested unanimously. Stability signified. The Abbott name still signified. Kyle goggled at the skyline and wondered how leadership could feel so much like grief. His phone buzzed with a single communication from his father. "I'm proud of you." Kyle swallowed hard. Pride shouldn't hurt this important. Meanwhile, in a private office far from the courthouse, Victor Newman heated as his attorney laid out worst-case scripts. Victor said nothing. He was formerly allowing 10 way ahead. He'd lost ground, not the war. Power, he believed, was tolerance. And tolerance had always been his topmost armament. Still, as he watched a muted news broadcast renewal footage of his arrest, commodity strange stirred beneath the wrathfulness, remorse. He crushed it incontinently. One person refused to stay silent. Phyllis Summers sat at her laptop, codifying faster than she allowed. Possible. Not an exposé. Not vengeance. The verity. Names, timelines, bills. She dithered only formerly, swimming over the publish button, thinking of Jack, of the man he was and the man he'd come. Also she clicked. Genoa City merited daylight. The ripple was immediate. Social feeds exploded. Talk shows suspected. Abettors reseated themselves. Adversaries circled. The megacity shifted again, recalibrating around a new reality where indeed legends could fall. The coming morning, Jack entered his first caller. Kyle sat across the glass, phone pressed to his observance. "I'll keep Jabot strong," Kyle said. "I promise." Jack jounced, eyes wet but steady. "Be better than me." As Kyle stood to leave, Jack added vocally, "Tell Nikki I'm sorry." High above Genoa City, a familiar red light blinked on, recording another ordinary moment that would one day matter. Because then, in this megacity of power and pride, redemption was no way guaranteed, but it was always possible.